Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positron.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I'm here to talk about the latest episode of Picard Season 2. It was called 2 of 1. And as it starts, we have Picard knocked out on the ground and bleeding from the mouth, with Rios checking his pulse. We then immediately flash back to 34 minutes earlier when Picard and Talon were having a conversation during which she says that he keeps calling her Laris. And when she asks him, who is Laris, he lies and says, oh, no one of significance. But she pretty much realizes that he's full of crap. He then makes the observation that maybe Talon isn't ready to let go of Renee after spending so many years watching her so closely to protect her, even though that may in fact be what she needs to do. He also tells Talon that while she's someone who's been looking out for Renee for so many years, it doesn't seem like anybody's been looking out for her. He asks her, who's been looking out for you? In the control room, we see where Agnes, who, by the way, looks smashing in the red dress, sprays a kind of a spray that knocks out the guards, and then with the help of the Queen, breaks out of her handcuffs and makes her way to the computer and puts the IDs in the system so that Picard and everybody else can get into the party. Now, she was able to do this after allowing the Queen to take a little bit more control of her body in order, to break out of the handcuffs, which I didn't really understand how that made a difference. It's still her body, so why would she be able to in one case and not in the other, depending on who was in control? I don't think that made any sense. But maybe it has something to do with being able to release more nanites and make her stronger the more control she has. I don't know. I guess if that's what's happening, why isn't she fully assimilated at this point, totally Borgified? I don't know. We then flash back over again to Picard in the aftermath of whatever it is that knocked him down, and they've got him in a conventional, run-of-the-mill 21st century ambulance for some reason. I mean, that's the only ambulance available, of course, but why didn't they take him to the ship? Rio says something like, because a med bay isn't a hospital. So? A med bed or whatever isn't a hospital? I don't know. But the EMTs are working on him, and we see his vital signs on the screen, even though he's an android. And I was like, what? Why would they be getting anything? Why would his android body be set up to mimic a human body when there wouldn't be any reason to, for that to be the case in the 25th century that I can think of? In other words, who is he hiding the fact that he's an android from? It wouldn't be a big deal, I would think. It's to the extent that you'd have to hide it. I don't know. Maybe they would have to hide it. I don't know. Back at the party, we get a conversation between the Queen and Agnes in which we learn that Agnes intentionally let herself be partially assimilated or whatever when she shot the Queen, because otherwise the Queen would be completely dead and, for sure, and their way home would have been eliminated. Whereas now I guess she hopes it isn't because she's still in there, which, okay, I'll buy that for now. Then there's a conversation between Raffi and Rios, and when he talks about how stunned he is by the 21st century because it's so intense, I was kind of surprised by that, because whenever they show civilian society in the 25th century, it seems just as intense to me. So I don't get that, because he talks about how cars are driving around. Well, yeah, they have space cars in the future also zipping around, so I don't get that. But they also talk about how Rios is sweet on the doctor lady, and Raffi admonishes him to not even think about going there, which is funny because she just let a busload of people go when they were destined to be deported the day before. She then briefly thinks that she sees Elnor again, but of course she's not seeing Elnor. Rios then approaches Agnes because apparently her communicator is off and Picard can't reach her, and he asks her if she's okay, and they have a little conversation where he reminds her that he cares about her, at which point the Borg Queen encourages Agnes to not be afraid to make a move, at which point she kisses Rios, but then backs off from it and walks away. Then we see Renee, and she seems to be having an episode after texting with Q, who is still masquerading as her therapist, and, heads out of the party, at which point Picard goes to catch up with her, only to be approached by Dr. Sung, who tries to warn him off of trying to help Renee on behalf of Q. And when Picard doesn't go for it, he gets security called on Picard by saying to the security that Picard is dangerous And it works because apparently he bought himself a seat on the board of whatever entity is throwing the party. So as he's trying to not be caught by security and the team is scrambling about, the Queen initiates some kind of an EMP that shuts the lights off so that I don't know, I guess the team would be helped by this, especially because at the same time, Agnes creates a distraction by singing a jazzy version of Shadows of the Night by Pat Benatar, like a boss, and the band plays along, which is cool, and it all results in a flood of endorphins within her, which allows the Queen to take full control of her body against Agnes's wishes. Then we see that Picard, with the help of the team, has acquired a security badge and a security earwig, I guess during the commotion with the lights out, and he approaches Renee, and when she says she'd rather be alone, he engages her in conversation. And when she asks what they should talk about, he says, look up, which is cool. And when she does, she sees above her, on the ceiling, hanging from the ceiling, is a model of a particular like spaceship, which he asks her to describe. And when she does, she seems to feel a little better, and they continue talking. Picard explains how she reminds him a lot of his mother, who also was in love with the stars and who also struggled, emotionally and mentally. After encouraging her not to be concerned about her fear, because while it's daunting, it means that she's cognizant of the risk she's taking, she seems to calm down. He then says that he was tasked with escorting her back to the stage for a toast by the mission commander or somebody, and she goes along. But then they go outside, and Renee explains somehow, that somehow that's the quickest way back to the stage, which of course doesn't make any sense, but which gives Dr. Soong an opportunity to try to run Renee down with his car, at which point Picard shoves her out of the way and takes the hit, which is why he's been on the ground since the beginning of the episode. The team then takes him to the lady doctor, who doesn't notice anything abnormal about his physiology, which again, for some reason, gives off normal vital signs. And when she discovers he's having a cardiac event, she hits him with the paddles, as you normally would. And of course, there's a big electric feedback type shock because he's an electric person, which she finds odd, but it puts his not at all human heart back into the correct rhythm. And afterwards, Seven says something about having successfully gotten Renee into quarantine, where nobody can mess with her, even though it was many hours away while the party was on, which is weird. Like all of a sudden quarantine time came around when it was hours away. I didn't get that. I must have misheard it or something. But, at the same time, she doesn't say anything about how almost being run over and then witnessing someone get hit by a car probably isn't helping her mental state. But nobody says anything about that. Then we get a scene where Dr. Soong goes home feeling as though he's failed and having a semi-drunken conversation with his daughter, Corey, whom he keeps referring to as his life's work, which I'm thinking indicates that she's either an android or like a clone or some kind of test tube baby type thing. Back at the clinic, the doctor does raise some concern as to who the hell they all are, having been spooked by the weird electric shock from the defibrillator, and Rios kind of plays her off, at which point she just leaves and leaves them all there, which is kind of weird, but okay. She says she has to go, her son has to go to school, but like, you're going to leave these people in your clinic? Okay. The next thing we see is Dr. Soong's daughter going to the computer and looking up her dad, at which point she finds all kinds of articles about how he's some kind of mad scientist and in trouble with the regulating boards and stuff. And, in the eyes of the media, he's seen as a mad scientist. And about his, his license revocation, which apparently she knew absolutely nothing about, which I'm not sure makes sense given that even though she's like a shut-in, why wouldn't she have access to media? Why wouldn't she have been aware of like the news? Seems kind of weird. She then finds a bunch of files in the computer containing pictures and videos of moments that she appears to be in as a child, but that she has no memory of. She also finds numerous files of Dr. Soong talking about how previous versions of herself didn't survive and how they died at various stages of life. Back at the clinic, Laris uses her technology and discovers that Picard is like trapped in his own mind and sort of can't, even though he's okay, he's not waking up. He's like stuck in his mind. And she wants to go inside his mind to wake him up, saying that they need to wake him up because he's the only one who knows anything at all about Q, which, while it's true that he has the most experience with Q, it's kind of not true that he's the only one who knows anything about Q, because again, they should all know something about Q. The interesting thing is that the memory he's stuck in seems to be more of a nightmare than a memory, because there are some really weird people in it that were menacing himself and his mother. So I'm not sure what that's about. One question I had was, if she can go inside somebody's mind and like play around, why isn't she ever gone inside Renee's mind to shore her up, given how important she is? I mean, I guess she says her directive is not to be directly involved, but like, I don't know. I guess that's what explains it, but I guess that explains it. We then see that Agnes is walking barefoot down the street, and that's where the episode ends. I thought that this episode was much better than episode 5. I thought it was more on par with episodes 3 and 4, which I thought were good. There was really good character stuff with most of the characters. 7 was kind of left out of that, but the other characters got a lot of good character stuff. I thought the song was fantastic. I loved that part of it. The conversation between Jean-Luc and his niece was really cool. We kind of saw the old Picard there that we didn't really see in the first season. And I thought the backstory stuff that we saw about Dr. Sung and his daughter was very interesting. Like, I want to know more about what he was up to and how many versions of Corey did he create. They all had different names. How many versions of her did he create? What was the longest one that lived before her? What's she gonna say when she figures out exactly what's going on? She's kind of weirded out right now and she knows something's up. I don't think she knows exactly what's happening, or if she does, she's kind of in denial. But once she sort of comes around to what's actually going on and what she is, she's gonna freak out, I think, and that's gonna be interesting. So I did like this episode where I didn't like the last one. There was some weird stuff in it that I thought didn't make sense, but whatever. Didn't really move the ball forward. They've got to stretch the story to 10 episodes, so that's not terribly surprising. But like I said, I think there was some good character stuff, and that's always worthwhile. And I love the song. One question I have now is that if Renee is finally in quarantine, what in the world are they going to do for the next 4 episodes? I don't understand how they're going to get 4 more episodes out of this story. Also, Q was completely absent from this episode, which is interesting. And we still don't have any idea at all what's wrong with him. So I don't know, maybe that's what they'll cover more in episode 7. I will, of course, be back to talk about episode 7 once it's released. Until then, I'm going to take off, and I wish you all peace and long life.